Welcome to this edition of CXO Digital Pulse. We have today a very eminent leader in the industry, a well-known leader in the industry whom I know for quite a long time. Let me introduce to you to Pankaj Rai, Chief Digital and Analytics Officer for Aditya Birla Group. So welcome, Pankaj, to the show.
Thanks, Saptrishi, and great to see you in person after such a long time.
Exactly.
And you haven't changed. You remain the same since I've known you. Your black hair, your baby face. You don't seem to age at all.
Well, thank you for the compliment. Thank you for the compliment. So Pankaj, what we have seen a lot of things happening in the last 2 years. The pandemic has changed the complete scenario of the industry. So how was the journey towards the digital transformation in the current period, and what are the challenges that you currently faced?
Yeah, so I think I'll talk about the Aditya Birla Group, although I could talk about Wells Fargo where I was, I could talk about other places that I am connected to, but I think I would like to talk about this group because this is a fairly diversified group. From trading to manufacturing to consumer businesses to retail to pretty much everything, and therefore it is a good microcosm of the whole economy. And therefore, talking about the group, I think, is a better way of summarizing what I'm observing across the board. Because many times in our own industry silo, we seem to get a limited view of what is going on here. So let me just share with you what I have seen here, and I'm just 8-9 months old. So first of all, I think this whole digital bug, if I can say so, has been more in the consumer side of the business, mostly on the online digital players, wherever they are, whether it is fashion or finance, which is where we are as well. But the whole industrial side, which is the factories and plants, while they have been doing things which you could classify as digital, but I don't think they knew that they were doing digital, and they never classified it that way, which always tends to happen in many things, that you do things but you don't put a name to it, and then later on someone tells you that you're doing that. So that's what happened here. So this whole pandemic, as we all know, has given a huge fillip to the first side, which is the consumer side, because consumers were at home and there was no way you could access them or they could access you. So both the fulfillment side and the marketing side had to reinvent itself, because the only method available to for the consumers to get to you was online, and the only method for you to get to them, fulfillment, was also deliver it to their home or whatever. And you couldn't get consumers anywhere else to get things fulfilled. So that was always there. I think even the manufacturing, the factories, which is where a large part of the Birla Group also is, also face some of these challenges, because while the plants were running, they were short of manpower. Not everyone was able to come. Many of their enabling functions had difficulties in being there and all that. So this whole digital area started to play a big role in that function as well. And as it started to happen, let's say on the enabling function side and so on, I think there was a whole push to also look at it on the core manufacturing side. So the journey within the Birla Group has been on the manufacturing side in 4 or 5 different areas, and it continues. And it's hard to say, how the pandemic has changed it, because the world of manufacturing moves relatively slowly. And 2 years is a short time in the world of manufacturing. It may be a long time in the world of consumer. But the 4 or 5 areas which the manufacturing industry really needs is really starting from the value chain perspective, from the procurement side. Then your machine maintenance, predictive maintenance, product quality, energy, safety. These are the various areas which impact almost every plant. So the whole digital journey is impacting each of them in different ways. And the way I think it happens is, the dynamic is as such that depending on which business you are in and which is the biggest area that you can impact, that is where I think the focus happens. So let's say in our case, if we are doing aluminum manufacturing, where a huge 30-40% of the cost is energy, then that's where you want to spend your effort, versus let's say some of the other competing areas. And similarly, in some other area, if procurement is a big cost, then you would focus your energy there. So I think every business will prioritize the area which has the biggest impact and try to focus their digital effort there. It's almost like the Pareto principle, that why don't I put effort here, because that's where the biggest bang for the buck is. Not that the others are not important, but as a group, when I see these 4 or 5 areas across the board are developing well. Some are developing in one company, some in some other company, but as a central team that we are, we see a lot of traction happening in all of these areas, albeit not necessarily in the same company.
Right, great. So any recent transformation, IT transformation that you have gone through, or any plans in the coming year, because the scenario has changed and the model has completely changed. So any plans for any IT transformation that you see in the coming time down the line that you have planned?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, including me, get scared with this word transformation, because it's a very big word, and many people get scared of what does it mean and what does it do. But the way I look at it is that every business wants to transform itself so that it can become better for its employees, for its customers, for all its stakeholders, and so on. So I think that business transformation to become better is an age-old need that all of us have always had. Today in a more competitive scenario, more so. Now, industrial businesses, by the very nature, tend to be a bit slow moving, and also the level of extreme competition that we see in the consumer online businesses do not exist. So if you have a factory making aluminum or cement or carbon or whatever, it's not as if there are 12 people breathing down your neck, or who's going to invent another factory next to you and chase you down. So I think therefore the competitive pressure and the business strategies in industrial businesses are far different from how they are in consumer businesses. So therefore one has to keep that in mind. At the same time, again, if you are a big player in our businesses, we are quite big, we are a market leader. So a market leader, the benefit of market leader is that you are a market leader. The downside of being a market leader is that sometimes, you don't necessarily always feel the pressure to reinvent yourself. So which can potentially make you lazy. So I think one has to resist that temptation and still continue to see how you can become better, reinvent yourself, transform business, all that. So I think the journey begins with you as a business leader, or whoever is the leader of the business or a function, to imagine or reimagine what the future of that function or the business might look like, as different from mine. And then the digital, in my mind, is an enabler to fasten that journey. So if you thought that you will become X in 3 years, but leveraging digital technologies, which to me is all these new different technology that exist, maybe you can do it in 2. So I look at digital as an enabler to business transformation, but the journey starts with someone imagining a new business. Digital, cannot be the first thing that can happen. It would be like putting the cart before the horse. Although, once you start becoming digital savvy, sometimes your imagination of the future can change, because you say, hey, if I have these technologies or these tools available, I could actually imagine a future which was not imaginable when digital was not there. But in general, I would say that the business leaders have to imagine a transformational future of the business first, and then utilize digital to get there faster. In the process, you might discover new ways in which you can reimagine the business, which is fine.
Great. So whenever you plan to change in any technical how do you adopt the adaptation? How is the adoption happening with the users, with the employees in the organization? Because things are changing, things are evolving. So whenever you propose any change to the sectors or the architecture that you have, so what are the challenges usually faced? Do the employees try to understand that it is a business imperative that we have to change due to certain situations that's happening around, and how do you manage it?
Yeah, so I think I tend to draw sort of 3-4 layers of circles when I try to explain this, to say, there's a business software layer which creates some data, which leads to some data science models. Then there are data engineering pieces which automate those things. And outside of that, and these are all technical pieces, there's a whole, think of it as a technical stack of infrastructure and software and data science and data engineering. But beyond that is this whole business layer, which includes business context, change management, defining the right problem, all of that. So many a time as a digital team or as a data science team, we sometimes tend to ignore or neglect the last layer, which is normally the competency area of the business people. But I think that is where I think the biggest bang for the buck is, in my opinion, because if digital folks and business people become more familiar, the digital people become more familiar with business, and business people become more familiar with digital, I think that's where the magic happens. Because I think these things are too intermingled to be kept separately. And therefore, I think defining the right problem is where the magic has to begin. And many a time that right problem may or may not be best defined, because the digital and the business people may or may not be talking the same language. Right. And therefore, the biggest unutilized value, in my opinion, is is at that change management or the business translation layer. And I think the best way I could think of is to both parties to appreciate each other's language better. Digital people, have to become far more business savvy, and the business people have to appreciate what all digital can do. I think that's the biggest area which I think we all try to work on. So as digital team, we tend to, educate business people on what it is and how it can be used and what questions you can ask at different layers in the organization. And similarly, I think we train our people to understand what the business context is, where the business can go, and so on and so forth. So it's an ongoing journey. I think it is the role of the digital team to play that educator role both for themselves and for the business, because the business has to run. They have to continue to sell. They have to continue to churn out profit. They don't have the patience or the mechanism to spend time on these quote unquote change management things. So therefore, the onus of learning the business and onus of training the business on digital lies squarely on the digital folks, which sometimes may not be appreciated by them as well, because they are so focused on churning out models that this whole change management effort and energy sometimes to them may seem like an administrative task best avoided, which I think is not the right way to think about it.
It's always a challenging thing whenever there's a change, and there's always a challenging thing. So when you propose this kind of changes, so how do you manage the IT and the rest of the business, and how do you manage the collaboration? How do you the partnership between each other to work together and then come up with a new technology or new infrastructure?
Yeah. So I think the way what we are embarking, and I won't say we have met with success in every business, but the approach that we have devised as a enabling team is to say, how do we first work with every business leader to determine what we are internally calling the digital ambition of that business over a 3-year period. So think of it as a strategy and a digital element within that strategy. So let's say I have a 3-year strategy of taking my business from X to Y, and then there's a digital element to say, how do I get there faster? So that digital ambition is all the thing that digital, whichever way you define it, can do to hasten your business transformation journey. Once you have gotten that, then it's a question of determining how do you prioritize what and who does what. So I think as a digital team, the way we look at some of these things is to say, there are certain projects or certain things which are sort of just do it, not very hard. And we say, hey, business, we can support you, but I think these things you can do it on your own. You are capable of doing it on your own. Here are some very unique, esoteric things which we think no one in the market is doing. And I think our own team should do it because it's a competitive advantage for you. It's not a very wide ranging thing. So we should do it. So that's the other thing. And pretty much everything in the middle, which either you can't do or we shouldn't do, should be done by an ecosystem of partnerships. And the partnerships that we have created is, one, there are vendors who have automation or data science or data engineering capabilities, and they come and help us with those. The second category is what I call the industrial technology companies like ABB, Siemens, Schneider, etc. They have developed some good digital solutions, and we partner with them. The third is startups, which are coming up with some very cool technology and so on and so forth. And the fourth is there are some niche consulting firms which are helping solve problems by using expert knowledge from around the world and so on and so forth. So the way we are doing it is to say, some things you do it, one extreme, some really esoteric things that no one will do, we should do it as a central team. And in between, a set of partners, depending on whoever is the most appropriate one, should come and do it. So that's the execution plan for this digital ambition, is the way we are thinking about it.
Great. This will be always a kind of a journey. This kind of thing will be always a kind of a journey for all organizations. But when now as you work on a huge set of data, I mean the data is long and is growing day by day. So any new tool or any new format that you're trying to bring in to the table, or any GTM model that you're trying to build up, like AI is now the buzz. I mean, how strongly are you implementing that AI technology in your business? I mean, is it really helping out, or is it really maturing day by day? Is it giving you the great insights that you're looking for? And how does that help now?
So I think it will depend on the nature of the business and how fast you are moving or how fast you are required to move based on the competitive pressure you have. So maybe there are some really cutting edge companies, say Amazon or some others, who have to continue to focus on enhancing their models and technology and so on and so forth. But the kind of businesses that are more traditional and old fashioned, in my mind, the bigger value is not having better models or better data engineering, but better change management. So like I said in the early stage of my discussion with you, that I think the more neglected part is the software aspect, which because it is not visible
Right.
and because it is not seen as a topic that the data science or a digital team is expert in, it tends to get neglected. So I tend to focus a lot more on making the usage of the current models more effectively and scaling it across the board.
Right.
So right now, if you were to ask me, my priority is not so much on can you improve the efficiency by 1% more of this model, or can you have a more better data, engineering so that I can get this data instead of weekly on a daily basis or whatever. I mean, of course, there could be some cases like that, but the question is, while these things are being created, why isn't people using it? Why can't we scale it from one factory to 200 factories? So to me, that whole change management layer and the scaling layer and all of that is right now the area of investment versus getting an incremental improvement in the model or data engineering area in the areas that I am familiar with. I'm like I said, there will be areas where you probably have exhausted all your change management activities and you have to come back and improve this, but today I see an opportunity on the other side.
Great. And now we see a lot of risk factors coming when it comes to security, cybersecurity, fraud management. There's a lot of things are happening. So how are you changing those aspects of security in your system? How are the layers been secured so that you don't face those issues, vulnerabilities issues that coming up? So how do you face those challenges? Does it really happening, or is it that something that you have taken care of, or that you really focusing on that part as well? Because data breaching, data security is something is really really disturbing for any organization, and we see a lot of
Yeah.
things happening nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also not something that you talk about a lot because, even if you have breaches and all, because of various reasons, people try to sort of, not talk too much about it. So, but from whatever I can, make out from the environment that I'm aware of, I think the consumer area is where this data privacy security breaches are quite prevalent when we talk about it. And I think there are, specialist companies and there are ways and means and there are frameworks that are there to manage it. I think the where I am now starting to think about is our factories, the IoT, that world where we are, now installing edge computing systems and so on and so forth. That area is relatively new, and what kind of cyber security will be required? How should we manage it? In an area, I would say is a bit of a work in progress for us because that whole area, from a data science and data engineering perspective, hasn't well developed as much as the consumer side. So I
Okay.
see a lot of opportunity for us to figure out what are the new ways and what are the best ways of managing information security on the industrial side, where it is not the customer data, but
Mhm.
mostly the machine data, which is at stake. And frankly, I mean, if you think about data can always be used by, bad actors for nefarious uses. So if they, get hold of your machine data, or if they get hold of your machine on the cloud and they can tinker with it, that's pretty harmful. I mean,
Harmful. Yes, it is.
as harmful as customer impact as well. So I think that is an area that is a big focus area for us because we are a large manufacturing conglomerate, and a lot needs to be done as we launch new, industry 4.0 solutions, bring in a lot of data to the industrial cloud and so forth. That is an area for focus for us. The other one, like I said, it's there, but it is, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a solved problem, but it's a near solved problem, which is work in process.
Excellent. Excellent. So I'll just come to the last point of this. This is a very, very key question which I usually ask. So what are your top priorities, at least for this financial year that you have? What are the top priorities that you have?
Yeah, I think that, like I was mentioning, this term digital ambition, to me, if we can change the behavior of all businesses and functions to start their work by defining that ambition,
Okay.
I think most of our work will get done because the digital ambition is almost like a business strategy to say, here is where I want to be. These are the things that I want to do. And if you have clarity on that sort of definition of your roadmap or what your aspiration or ambition is, I think the how or the execution is not as hard. And I keep saying all the time that these days, I think the value creation is on the defining the what and why. That
Mm-hmm.
is the hard part. The how is becoming more and more of a solved problem, so to say. So I think once we know what to do, we'll figure out a way to do it, whether we do it ourselves or through vendors, partners, whatever. But determining what to do and why to do it is always difficult. And sometimes the businesses also haven't thought through deeply about why they want to do something. So our job is now becoming helping them determine that digital ambition, going through a almost like a Six Sigma type process that we used to have of defining certain things in a certain way and then going and executing it, to say this is a common language that we'll use to define that ambition. So once we've all defined that ambition, I think the execution, I think we are good at it and we'll be able to do it. But making people believe that they have to define that ambition, which is a very blue sky thinking, engaging a bunch of different stakeholders, thinking openly about new ideas, is not common knowledge. It's not part of the DNA. So if you can start making that part of the DNA, I think the rest will follow.
Excellent, excellent. I mean, I don't know how to convey, but these are a lot of insights. I think this is very, very helpful. I mean, of course, I wish you all the best in your journey in Aditya Birla Group. I know it's pretty new, 9 months, and I wish you all the best. And we do look forward for a lot of events, upcoming events that we have. In fact, recently we are also upcoming with a manufacturing event. I'm sure we'll be having an opportunity to invite you there. I really thank you for the time and the kind of insights that you have shared. It has been really, really helpful. And as always, it's always been a wonderful speaking to you. I really don't know how to thank you, but thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to be in touch. And we look forward again for any kind of future summit or kind of conferences or any kind of events that we have. Thank you very much, Pankaj, for your time. We wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Saptarshi. And I think some of these questions are always good to revisit because, while the questions remain the same, our thinking becomes more sharpened when we answer them again and again. So I always look forward to these opportunities to, get asked some of these questions, sometimes differently, sometimes the same question, but different answers. So I think it is always good to learn, by talking about some of these things in different forums. So thanks for this opportunity. And like you said, we look forward to catching up again.
Thank you. Sure. Same here.
Okay.
Same on my side. Thank you, Pankaj. Have a wonderful day ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.